Hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm the Witch of Wonderlust. Today I'm drinking Jasmine Pearl Tea Mango Ceylon. It's a black tea that was sent to me by Sip Spy. Just a really quick tidbit, Sip Spy is a monthly tea subscription box, so they send tea right to your doorstep every single month, and it's personalized to you. So if you want to check that out and maybe possibly get your own monthly subscription box full of tea, I have a discount code for you, and using this discount code you can actually get $5 off of your first box. But nonetheless, let's get into it. I have a super highly requested video, a book review. And I say a book review, but it's a book review video. I have a whole book haul for you guys. I'm really excited to show you guys this. And you think like, oh, 3 or 4 books to show us. No. Got a lot of books for you, okay? So this is going to be probably a lengthy video. I'm excited to share these books with you and kind of my take on them. These are completely my personal opinions on all of these books. So if you own one of these books and you're thinking, this really helped me though, I don't know why she didn't like it as much as I did. Or maybe you're thinking, why did you like that book so much? It was awful. These are my personal and honest opinions about what I got from these books, because everybody's practice is completely different. And so if you are practicing Wiccan, then maybe a Wiccan book helped you a lot more than it helped me. All right, let's get in on this. So real quick, I would really like to thank Weiser Books for sending me these 3 amazing books that I get to review and share with you guys. I have finished these 2 already, and I am going, this is upside down, and I'm trying to go through this one really slowly because it's really good. And when you know when you find a good book and you don't want to just rush through it and have it over so quickly. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this one, but I already suggest this one if you really like history, archaeology, and obviously dark history that has to do with the supernatural, and very interesting dark history with supernatural beliefs and spiritualities throughout finds through archaeology. It's really well written, it's very interesting, and I already suggest this book, so we're just gonna put that one to rest because if you get the chance, this is a really good read. All right, so the next one by Weiser Books that they sent me was a voodoo doll spell book. I'm not practicing voodoo, I'm not trying to practice voodoo. The thing is, the spell doll or the magical puppet or whatever you want to call it, doll babies, there's a lot of names for them, are in a lot of different religions and are in a lot of different practices. I believe the first, that is the oldest, came from Egypt, if I'm remembering correctly. Spell dolls have been used in spirituality all over the world. I looked through, and one of the first things that kind of caught my eye was, it says something about Japanese voodoo dolls. And my first thought was, what? Because voodoo, a Haitian practice and religion, and I don't think they practice voodoo in Japan. But then I read through it and they explain it a little bit more. They're not saying that it is a voodoo doll. I was talking to Alex about it actually, kind of like, why is there the word voodoo plastered all over when she gives examples and gives spells that come from different backgrounds than the Haitian background? And he suggested that it was probably the publisher who was saying, look, if you want your book to sell, then plaster the word voodoo doll over it because that is going to sell. That is the first thing that people think about when they think about puppets or spell dolls. It's actually a pretty interesting book. She explains a lot of different uses with the spell doll in different religions and practices, and gives you a lot of those ancient and older spells that use puppets in them. So there's a lot of different doll spell work in here. Of course, it starts out with the curses and hexes, but it also goes into health and fertility, power, protection, defense, self-improvement, wishing. It kind of like dabbles into a little bit of everything. So it's not something that goes heavily into one subject other than the magic doll, but the magic doll has so much history and so much depth that it's kind of hard to cover in one book unless it's like this thick. It even gives you formulas for different kinds of oils and different kinds of incense blends. So it is an interesting book. It does have a lot of really good information in it, but just take the voodoo with a grain of salt. The author, I don't believe, originally wrote it as the voodoo doll spell book. I think that was kind of a marketing. Just take that with a grain of salt. But it has a very broad range of what you can read and what you can kind of get out of this book. So I do think that this would be an interesting book to pick up if you are interested in sympathetic magic. All right, so the third book that Weiser Books sent to me, which I very much enjoyed. Just a quick little insert. I do enjoy doing sympathetic magic. I really do like making my own poppets, but I also acquired from Weiser Books Magical Art of Crafting Charm Bags. Well, aren't poppets and charm bags kind of the same thing, but except without the whole sympathetic side of it? And essentially, yes. They are a little bit easier to do than poppets, but also charm bags are really easy to put in your pocket, to put in your bag, to put in your car, to hang from your car window, mirror, to put under your pillow or under your mattress or things like that. And you can just kind of like tuck them away places for protection, for wardings, for, you know, whatever your intentions are. So I did really enjoy reading this book. The author does go into preparing for your charm bags, and the way they suggest to do so is a big ritual. Not a big ritual, but I mean a big ritual compared to what I would personally do. They suggest that you plan it on a certain day, on a certain moon phase. You cast a circle, which I actually don't cast circles when I do spells, but that's a personal preference. You set up a candle for each element and then spirit, and then you enchant each object, and it's kind of like this, it's more of a lengthy ritual than it is a quick spell, which is what I think of when I'm making charm bags. It's just something quick to throw together, to make, and to hold on to. I think there is a big, broad spectrum of what you can do with charm bags, because I like that the author gives you a suggestion of making a whole ritual around this one charm bag. It does kind of imbue more and a stronger energy onto the spell that you're doing. So if you wanted something that was a long-lasting protection charm bag, then you would probably do something a little more lengthy and a little bit more time-consuming and energy-consuming to put into that charm bag, rather than something that you just kind of like threw some rocks into a bag and tossed it in your car. But again, it also gives you some ideas on how to keep working with the charm bag and to renew the energy and to keep that energy fresh and going whenever you do make charm bags. So I actually do think that this would be a really good book, especially if you're a beginner. I feel like charm bags are a really, really, really good way to start, because they do have such a broad spectrum on what you can actually do and make with those things, and it doesn't require candles. So I would highly suggest picking this one up if you're able to, and if you're interested in charm bags, yeah, I like them. I'm probably going to be making a lot more, and maybe, just maybe, thanks to Weiser Books, I will make a spell video around a charm bag. So if you want to see that, definitely leave me a comment. Leave me a suggestion on what kind of charm bag and what kind of spell you would like to see from this book, because I really enjoyed this one. All right. So real quick, I want to thank you, Weiser Books, for sending me those. I finished 2 books in one day because those were so good. They were really interesting and they had a lot of information. And then I'm still trying really hard not to read the Evil Archaeology book too quickly, because it's really good, it's really well written. So again, thank you so much for sending that to me. And they didn't just send me these books, they sent me a discount code just for you guys. WOWL, all capitals. I'll leave it in the link. I'll put it somewhere in this general area, but it's 30% off and it expires July 12th. So it's only active for 30 days, but if you guys are interested in looking at any of the books that I showed you here, or they actually have a huge collection of really interesting metaphysical, supernatural, witchy, occult, and religious books. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead. All right, so now we are going into books that I have had and have recently acquired. So this is one of the first books that I picked up because it just seemed like a good, safe, easy book to pick up. A Spell a Day for Health, Wealth, Love, and More by Cassandra Eason. This was one of the first books that I picked up that was actually about casting spells and not like tiptoeing around herbs and lore and things like that. It was like a straight up like cast and spells book. There are things that I do and don't like about it, But the things I didn't like about it is that if you were new at spellcasting, it doesn't really explain to you spellcasting at all. It's literally just a spell book. So if you're kind of looking for how do I do this, what do I do, just kind of some guidelines to start up with, it's not good for giving you the tools to start in it. It just gives you the spells straight away. The good things about it is that there are so many, like each page has a spell on it, and they're all relatively easy. It gives you a good timing, whether that's a moon phase, a day of the week, a time of the day, and then it'll give you what you need and some really quick, easy directions on how to do that. But it's definitely not a bad book. I have used a few of these. I was actually going through, I've had this book for a while, but I was actually going through and peeling out the sticky notes that were sticking out, and it was kind of sad because I was looking at all the spells that I had used or that I was looking at, and all of them were to acquire a sum of money just to pay my bills. And then one of them was an instant mirror spell to stop a sudden panic attack. So it was kind of like sad to look back and see that those were the things that I was needing at that time, but also it kind of shows me how far I've come, so that's good. All right, the next one I picked up at a used bookshop. It's called Basic Witches. It is a very modern book, so it does apply to modern witches, which is really nice because then it's not, you know, saying that you have to be in the middle of the woods and cast your circle there and like call upon X, Y, and Z and use an ancient this and that and blah, 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 blah. It is very gender neutral, so it's not just about the feminine aspect of witchcraft. Because while that's all good and all, men practice witchcraft too, and it kind of sucks to feel like that they're being left out when they are a big part of balancing the universe, because, you know, 50% of humans. So this was really refreshing. It's not all about the femininity of witchcraft and blah, blah, blah. It was very nice to have that gender neutral feel to a witch book. It also uses a lot of modern objects, so I believe that there are even cell phone spells in here that you can use your cell phone in. I know that a lot of traditional witches are gonna be like, you can only use sticks and dirt and stones, but witchcraft is meant to evolve. It's a tool of need. So as we evolve as people and as the environment evolves around us, we are going to use the things that we have at hand, and that is kind of what the craft is all about. If you don't agree with it, that's totally fine, but if you do, I think you should definitely try one of these, and this would be a really good book for you. It even says that there's a stylish talisman to banishing terrible Tinder dates, so if that sounds like something that you desperately need, then I think this was a really cute book. It was very lighthearted. I think this is a really good book. I enjoyed it. It was very modern and a breath of fresh air in the witchy community, so check that one out. The next book, a little taller on the top of my list. So the next one is Moon Spells, How to Get What You Want Using the Phases of the Moon. Ironically enough, her name is Diane, goddess of the moon. I enjoyed this book because it starts out with a story. The introduction is a story about how she came into contact with this man who didn't believe in the phases of the moon and the power and things like that, and she ended up actually helping him find a very good job when he was looking for one, and even find love. And I guess nowadays he still kind of contacts her and is like, hey, you wanna help me out? It states in the book and says this is not a Wiccan book. It also says that this book is not about witchcraft, but I don't really know what she defines as witchcraft, but it does have spells in it. So, you know, to each their own. But the good thing was that it wasn't completely, that it wasn't overwhelming of a bunch of Wiccan beliefs, because I'm not Wiccan. So it was kind of another breath of fresh air to do that. She gives you the phases of the moon and how to work with them. She gives you a lunar calendar. She even talks about casting a triangle and casting a square, which sound very strange when I say it out loud, but there are different energies that you can conduct or different reasons that you would cast a different shape rather than a circle. So that I think was a very interesting bit of information that I found in this book in particular. There's also talking about walking a moon circle and how to set one up and how to use one. And then of course in the back there are spells. So I actually very highly suggest this book. I feel like a hypocrite. I'm like, I don't suggest books, and now here I am. I'm like, let me tell you about these 10 books that I have. But I suggest this book definitely, especially if you were drawn to the moon. I know that some practitioners are not, so if that's not something that interests you, then don't sweat it, but it is still a very interesting book to check out. So if you ever see it on the bookshelf or whatever, I would suggest to pull it off and give it a little bit of a flip through. All right, so the next one is one that I'm just assuming that a lot of witches have these days. This was also one of my first books that I picked up that was like a spell book or a witch book. And it was the Modern Witchcraft Spellbook by Skye Alexander. This is Wiccan based, and I don't know if Skye Alexander is Wiccan, but I'm assuming so, just because the book does talk about casting a circle. It does talk about different tools that you will need during your spell cast, and it talks about the law of 3 and an athame, which is a Wiccan thing. So looking for things that are not Wiccan, then I wouldn't really suggest this one. It's still an okay book to read. There's not anything that really popped out to me in this particular book that I was like, that's an amazing spell, or that's an amazing, wow, piece of information. But it is a good read. It's not, I don't feel like I wasted money on this. I don't really refer back to it very often or ever. It doesn't really go into anything super in-depth. It's just kind of like, here's just the information you need right now. Here's just that information that you need right now. It doesn't really go into anything in-depth. But again, it's designed for beginners, so I don't really have anything else to say about this book. It's not a bad book. It's just not something that jumped out at me. But again, a lot of people really like this book, so if you are interested, go ahead and check it out. All right, this one I actually picked up for free, which is kind of crazy, which, I mean, I'm not going to complain about a free book, especially when it goes into magical herbs. This one is a very popular one, especially around traditional witchcraft. Cunningham is a huge, huge author, very well known. I actually had never read any of his stuff before this one, and I actually very much enjoyed it a lot more than I was assuming I was going to. So I just picked it up, kind of like, oh, I guess I'll read this a little bit and see where we're going. And I liked it a lot. I finished it in a day because really there's not a whole lot to read. It's mostly information about botanical magical herbs. It goes into how to enchant things, how to enchant herbs. It talks really well about how to go about spell casting. I think it's a really good beginner book, surprisingly enough. I think it might be a little bit overwhelming, but there is information that is really, really helpful if you are still not really understanding where to go. So if you're thinking, oh, I really love herbs, then I think maybe this book would be a pretty good book to pick up and try. It does have a lot of really good suggestions about spell work, just kind of in general, and casting spells and using energies from different items, specifically herbs. But yeah, I actually do suggest this book. So that's it. Okay, we are on our last 2 books. One of the books I've had for a very long time, and then the other book I had just picked up. So both of these books are both by the same author. I really enjoy her writing, and I think that anything by her would probably be a pretty good book to pick up. The first book is The Green Witch. A lot of people really like this book. This one's a very popular book, and I can understand why, because it is a really good read. She comes off as a very down-to-earth, kind person through her book as well, and she gives a lot of really good information in such a small book too. There are also spells in this one, everything from baths to oils. There's like bread and baking and soups and teas, a bunch of stuff. There's even charm bags and things like that in this one. So I did really enjoy this book. Sometimes I refer back to it as well. So that one I would suggest picking up if you are into the earth-based kind of magic. The other one by her is the protection spells. And this one I really like. It gives you a lot of really good ideas on how to protect yourself, to protect your home, your space, certain items, or even other people. And I really want my tea. And she does really well at explaining how to do these things, and especially in the protection spell book, she does talk about how to actually cast spells and how to practice and work with them and how energy works and how spell casting works. So I did really enjoy those two books. I do suggest those books, and I do refer back to both of those books as well. I hope that was a good little book review. I know that I also suggested in my FAQ video 2 books by Judica Isles. I don't think I'm saying her name right, but those 2 books are Encyclopedia of Witchcraft. I really like that book. It's giant. That one is literally an encyclopedia of things that are based around witchcraft. That one's really interesting. It talks about different deities, different spirits, definitions that you may or may not be curious about. So that one's just a really good one to refer to. And her other book, 5,000 Spells, the Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells, that one also is a huge, really thick book. Like, it's really, really big. Both of those are giant, heavy books and have a whole heap of information. The 5,000 Spells is a really interesting one because it mixes kind of modern and ancient spells that she's collected all into one book. So it's a good book to look through if you're thinking, oh, I need a prosperity spell. What kind of things are involved in a prosperity spell? So you can kind of flip through and look at the different ingredients and kind of pick and choose, oh, that one is really good for a prosperity spell for the specific intention that I have. Use different methods, different executions, and different items to put into your spell. So that one's also a really good one to use if you're crafting your own spell together and you want kind of a whole heap of spells to, I guess, cross-reference. I have all of those links in the description below as well. They are all Amazon affiliate links, so if you do purchase through that specific link, you're actually supporting this channel at no extra cost to you. That is all I have for everybody today. Kind of just touched on all of them. There is a lot more. I would really enjoy to do a charm bag video, so let me know what intention you would like this spell to be around, and just pop that in the comments. Let me know. If you want to join the Wonderlust Coven, go ahead and subscribe and become a part of the Wonderlust Coven. There's also a page for just the Wonderlust Coven community, and all talk to each other and bounce ideas off the tarot cards or our new altar setup or anything like that that maybe you can't share with the people that are in your day-to-day life. I will see you guys next Wednesday, and as always, best of luck, be kind to each other, and may your gods treat you as you've treated others. Bye.